statements or whatever it is. But if you don't know what your is, you're in danger of your audience discovering what your is and then becoming preoccupied with your during the presentation. Have you ever found that? That you've noticed what somebody's is and you tip the person next to you and go, listen to how many times he says the word And then the presenter is standing there and everyone's giggling and he's going, well, what's so funny? What's going on? You would hate for that to be you. And yet that's a very real problem. So that's why, once again, video your presentation, you'll discover your Ask somebody who was in the room, a friend, a colleague, what am I doing? Is there some that I'm doing without realising? Now, I discovered through videoing myself and through doing lots of presentations that I had an And I think I still have it a little bit, and I can tell you that some of you may have noticed, I do this with my glasses. I just keep knocking them up there. Now, I'm aware of the fact that my glasses are not going to somehow magically jump onto the floor. But they are clipped there behind my ears. They're not going anywhere. But I keep doing this, and I discovered it on the video, and now I've worked through it with a lot of psychotherapy, and I will not do that as much. But I can tell you that if any of you noticed it, or now that I've pointed it out to you, now for the next 3 minutes or 5 minutes of this presentation, if I do it, you'll go, he did it again. What is your Discover it, find out what it is, and if you want to try and cut down on it, on your notes, I always have notes when I present, by the way. Don't feel in any way embarrassed about the fact that you have notes. Right? You're not performing a play on a stage that you have to know off by heart. If you have notes that you look at from time to time, that's totally okay. I've heard presenters, while they're in the middle of their presentation, go, oh, I'm sorry, I've just lost the train of thought. What was I talking about? Usually an audience member will tell you what you were talking about, or you can go, hang on a sec, let's have a look. No one minds if you do that. That, if anything, tells them, oh, you've spent a little bit of time putting notes together for your presentation. We appreciate that. So on your notes, if you have a particular maybe write the word or whatever it is. Or if you're worried about your voice becoming a monotone voice, write voice on your notes, so that every time you look down at your notes, you'll just go, oh yeah, okay, I better make damn sure that my voice is not delving into an It just gives you the opportunity to second guess yourself. So a couple of final things. We've touched on some of these already, but what can really make the difference between being an ordinary presenter and an extraordinary presenter? You touched on it before. It's the importance of looking enthusiastic. I'm not saying being enthusiastic, because this might bore you. Whatever you're talking about, you may not find all that interesting. Pretend. Pretend. As an audience, we don't care whether you're really interested or not. As long as you look interested and sound genuinely interested, I don't care whether it's real or fake. As long as I can't tell. As long as it sounds like real enthusiasm. The way I explain to people how to do it is think about reading a bedtime book to a child. How do you read a book to a child? You over-exaggerate. You put on the voices. You do the expression. You use your hands. You make it come to life. On the face of it, the Dr. Seuss words are just words. But if you read them with passion and enthusiasm and voices and your hands and your eyes, you can really make this come to life. It's the same thing as the Sesame Street principle, and it's the same thing as talking about budgets or uniforms or HR issues or whatever it is. Make them come to life. Make them sound interesting. Pretend to be enthusiastic if you're not. I've covered voice already, but just listen to yourself when you take yourself and hear if your voice is going like this, or if it's going too much, that's too much, all right? You don't want it to jump around everywhere, but you know, you can go loud and soft. Some of the softest presenters are the best presenters. Sometimes if you're presenting to a noisy room, pausing, being a little bit quieter, that sometimes will automatically silence people. Sometimes that won't work at all, but other times it will. Trying to shout over the top of people doesn't always work. So just try some of these things, listen to yourself and see whether it makes any difference. Okay, hands, it was something that you guys were doing fantastically when you were doing the presentation before, but loosen your hands, allow them to tell the story. Okay? If you're carrying things, if you're holding on for dear life, you don't give yourself the opportunity to do that. Again, it takes practice. Take everything out of your hands and just let your hands tell whatever story you're telling. Again, you don't want to exaggerate it so that your hands are going off all over the place with no relevance to what you're saying. All right? But if you are talking about the developing of something or the movement of something, tell those stories with your hands. They can tell fantastic stories. No magic to this one. All you can do is just get up there and do it. The more you do it, the less nervous you'll become. Here's one piece of advice I have for the very nervous presenter. If you're doing a presentation for longer than a couple of minutes, start your presentation by actually taking the focus off you, because we don't like people looking at us. That's what unnerves us. And it's the start that often is the most nerve-wracking. Start the presentation by throwing the attention onto your audience, asking them a question, asking them to do something, asking them to have a quick discussion with the person next to them, giving them something, maybe showing a video. But it means that you've started your presentation without actually even having to talk all that much. And that's the most difficult part, that start. Often once you get into the rhythm of it, you realise you're okay, you're on the roll, you've got your notes, you're talking about stuff that you understand, you'll be okay. But think about that beginning and what you can do. The eye contact, as we said before, just make a note if you're worried that you're going to forget, just to look at everyone. If it's a large group of people, you won't be able to look in every single person's eyes, but you'll certainly be able to look in every person's direction. Now, if you're talking to a group like this, of this size, or in this type of format, don't forget the people on the sides, because they often get ignored, and don't forget your mosh pit. Okay, the people down the front. Just look at them. Now, they may not look at you when you're looking at them. There may well be times, I know there have been, that I've looked down here and some of you were looking elsewhere at the screens or whatever. But from time to time, just keep looking and hoping that you're going to pick up on that person's eyes as if you're talking to them. Now, if you notice that there's a particular person that's drifting off, just hold eye contact with them just a little bit longer. Right now, I'm not suggesting that you would. But it's basically a way of saying, I'm onto you. I'm going to look over here right now and take a look down, sit down there, I'm going to look over there, but I'm just going to come back to you just to make sure. Don't hold eye contact with somebody for too long, okay? Because now it starts to get a little bit creepy. I'm not a presenter now, I'm a stalker. Okay, not too long, but just be conscious of looking at everyone. Okay, final couple of things. Spell check your presentations if you're using PowerPoint. Okay, particularly in a school, there's always going to be that one unbelievably pedantic person who's going to get really upset with you because you spelled something wrong, and fair enough too. You never know who's in your audience, you never know if it's the person who is the spelling, the person who really... So spell check your presentation, and spell check is not enough, because some words are spelled correctly but they're in different contexts. Show your presentation to somebody else. People will judge you by it. You'd hate to be presenting to teachers or parents and for a parent to go, presentation was okay, but there were like 3 spelling mistakes. And they'll just judge you in an instant like that. So here are the things that hopefully you'll take away from this presentation. Because there's been a lot of things. But the main things that I've tried to deliver to you over the course of the last hour is the content is there, spend some time on that content, think about how you can deliver that content more effectively, practice it, prepare, do those dry runs as much as possible, and try and put a little bit of your personality into the way in which you present. Don't be embarrassed to talk about something that happened to you. Tell a relevant story. And make it into a presentation that only you can give, because there's a little bit of you seeped into that presentation, and try and make it a little bit different so that you don't end up with an audience like that or an audience like that. Alright, with that in mind, we're going to hear from our sponsor, and he's going to take us into our